since I got sick and lost my car and everything, there wasn't a whole lot that I could do that made me feel like I had purpose. So that was nice. And winter came along, and he got into snow clearing. So we started doing that. He got a new tractor. The Bolins, I think, was the first tractor he got. So he started doing the snow clearing, and that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, that has to be done in the morning, and it was really difficult for me to get up in the morning. Fibromyalgia has a nickname. It's called the morning disease. It's really difficult to wake up when you're not ready to wake up. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. Between our property and property beside, we had this stone wall. The bottom of it was kind of slipping outwards, and I decided I was going to fix it. My plan was take the rocks out, dig out the part that's slid in, dig out like maybe a foot of the ground, put the rocks back in place, and put a drainage pipe in there with gravel, and then put the soil back on top. That was my plan. The neighbor decided he was going to help out, and all of a sudden, it had to have a concrete base. There had to be mortar between the rocks, and he made it so difficult. And the job just dragged out. Like, I was going to do it all myself. I didn't have a problem with that. I was going to pay for everything myself. I figured out the drainage pipe, the gravel that I was going to need, and then I was going to put a garden in on top. Because it's just like a strip of grass beside the driveway. So I was going to turn that into a garden. And it would have cost me about $200. I already looked at the cost and delivery, because they used a skid steer and it was sold by the bucket. So whatever amount would fit in the bucket of a skid steer, that's how it was sold. And that was a little too much for the dump trailer, so I would have had to have it delivered. Or dump it somewhere, take home what I could, and come back and get the rest, whatever. So either way, it would have cost me about $200 to do all that. And not a whole lot of labor involved in it. The hardest part is probably moving the rocks, because they're pretty heavy. But it was August, I believe, and I figured it probably would have took me a month, a little bit each day, and I would have got it done before the cold weather came and before my illness came back worse. Because at that point in time, I already realized that every year, once summer's over, my illness gets worse. So it would have been fine. I would have got it done. But the neighbor made it so complicated. He paid for everything. He paid for the concrete. He paid for the mortar and all that. But it made the job drag out. Because I already started putting the rocks back in place when he decided. Taking all the rocks out. I was only taking the rocks away from, it was kind of like a V shape, to get to the part that was sliding out. And then just dig that out and then start putting the rocks back in. I kept them in order so I could put them back the way they came out. And then once I got to that point, then I'd get the shovel out and I'd start digging the soil out behind the rocks so I could put the gravel in. But no, it didn't work that way. And it got to the point where now my illness is back. I can't help anymore. I can't do it. So he hired somebody to come in and start doing this work for him. And at some point he realized that this wall is not his wall. It's on our property. And all of a sudden he got sick and couldn't do it anymore. So my neighbor, he's an older gent, and he's got health problems himself. He couldn't do it anymore, and he said something to me about Cody, accused me, and it pissed me off what he said. So I said, fuck it. Oh, sorry. Do it yourself. I'm not helping anymore. I says, I would have had this done by now. You made it complicated. It's now your job. Even though it was our wall. But so at one point he kind of begged me to help him just to get it done. And I did. I helped him out. But here's the problem. My landlord got involved in it. And I was under the impression that my neighbor was suing my landlord over the cost of this, what he put into this wall. That was my impression. Because I never went to the landlord about it. I never asked him if I could do it. It's a simple job. You know, the wall. Oh, I just got a really loud text. It's a simple job. Just take the rocks out, dig out the part that's collapsing, put the rocks back, add some drainage, done. Right? Why would I need to ask the landlord permission for that? Right? It's not a major thing. It's not changing anything. It's just fixing what's going wrong, basically. So that was my impression. He was suing my landlord. And somewhere along the line, I got subpoenaed. I had to go as a witness. And I spent all day in court. I hated that. I hated that so much. So I never found out till afterward. Kind of getting ahead now. December come along. Landlord shows up with an eviction notice. He's selling the house. We have to leave by March. No explanation. That was his reasoning. Selling the house, you gotta move out. So, wonderful. I had to check my text just to make sure it wasn't important. Michelle needs me for something. Nope. It's a firm. It's my new camera. Suggesting auto payments. I thought they were automatic as it was. I'll check that out later. So, scrambling to get everything done. And not a whole lot of money. You know, from us, Zach wasn't working at the time. And Michelle and I are both on ODSP. What are we gonna do, right? So we applied for help. Because apparently when you're on ODSP, they will help you if you have to pay first and last month's rent. They will help you with moving expenses. But during this process, got reading the eviction notice, and the reason we're being evicted is non-payment of rent. With that being there, ODSP will not help. Now, the reason it's non-payment of rent, because every once in a while, we need extra money for something, and Michelle will ask for a rent-free month where we don't have to pay rent, and then she makes up for it over the year. Apparently she's done that pretty much every year that she lived there before I moved in. That's never been a problem. But we owed less than half a month's rent. He used that as an excuse to evict us, to get us out of the house. So, my opinion, I liked him. He was an awesome landlord. But my opinion of him changed at that point. I was not impressed. And, if you've watched those videos, you'll know I'm not impressed. I've spoke my mind on that. So, we moved here. We tried to find a place. The first 10 years that she lived there, the rent never went up once. So, it was actually pretty good price. And we just couldn't find anything we could afford. And then this place here in Wingham, found it, and the lady that's renting it, specifically renting to low-income people. So we got lucky we found her at the right time. There was someone else that was looking at it, but she put us first. Yeah, because ours was more of an emergency type situation. We had to find something soon. So we moved here. And since I moved here, I found out that my neighbor didn't sue my landlord. My landlord sued the neighbor. And he, bogus reasoning, I can't remember everything in it, but he lost his lawsuit. And not only did he have to pay for his lawyer, he had to pay for my neighbor's lawyer, and he had to pay the court a fine for wasting their time. Normally, I would say, oh, that sucks, but no. Because I was pissed off at him, I found that funny. It looked good on him. So, I wasn't impressed. So, that's why he kicked us out, because he had to sell the house to pay his court stuff. He didn't have a choice. He could have told us that. We would have understood. But no, he had to kick us out for non-payment of rent. So we couldn't afford to get anything. Couldn't get any financial assistance. Had to do it all on our own. Maxed out my credit cards because I had to rent the U-Haul truck. I had to pay for gas. And everything else that we had, all the other expenses that came with it. But that just, it looked good on him. I didn't feel bad for him at all after that. So, I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, I did miss something. Something very important. The monster. So, because I was using my credit card constantly, I used it every month, then I'd pay off what I could, and it built my credit back up again. And at some point, I was looking at scooters online, and I stumbled upon the monster. I looked at the picture. I fell in love with it. It was a beautiful looking scooter. But the price range, it was like $12,000. Thinking, okay, I'll never have one. That's way out of my price range. But it's beautiful. I've never seen a scooter with a roll bar on it. I've never seen a scooter with off-road tires. It was just, it looked so sharp. So, I forgot about it. Not really forgot, but, I stopped looking at it. And at some point, I went back to it. And I noticed the price was down to $7,200. 12,000 was crossed out, and it's a 7,200. Well, that's a little better. That's still a high price, but that's better. That's more than twice what I paid for the ES 950. So it's just out of curiosity. It took me a few days, but it's just eating at my mind. Like, can I get this, right? So just out of curiosity, I went to the bank one day, not expecting anything at all. And I showed her the picture of it, presented it to her with the price and everything. And I told her, I says, when I got sick, it said my credit went, and I got a credit card since. I've been using it, and is it possible? I don't know what kind of credit you need to get a bank loan, but she says, well, let's put some numbers in and see what happens. So I'm sitting there talking, and anytime I've had a bank loan, it's like it takes hours, and sometimes the next day or something I'll hear back from them. But I'm sitting there talking, and then she says, "Oh, you're approved." My jaw dropped. It's like all of a sudden my mind says, "The monster's yours." I was in tears. I was literally in tears, and I can't explain how I felt. First time in my life I actually got something I wanted instead of having to settle with whatever I can afford. Problem is, wasn't much of a problem, but the problem is it was a 7-year loan. In order to bring it down to payments, I can afford about $150 a month on my income. That's about it. So in order to bring the payments down to that, it had to be a 7-year loan, which means I'm going to be paying a whole lot of interest. So my loan was $7,500. Yeah, $7,500. And by the time I'm finished paying for it, it's going to be over $12,000 or $10,000. So I'm looking at the money. Now when I look at something, if there's something I want, I don't care what the price is. I don't look at the price. I look at what its value is to me. There's a lot of people, they won't buy something if it's too much money, right? If something they want or whatever, I said, no, that's too much. To me, I don't care what the price is. If I want it, then whatever its value is to me is more important than the price tag, right? So I didn't care, I wanted this scooter, and it didn't matter, how much more it was going to cost me. So at that time, by the time it was finished being paid for, it would have been over $10,000. But in actuality, it was over $12,000, I think, or almost $12,000, something like that. I'll have to look at it. But I didn't care. It's what it meant more to me to have it than to worry about what the price is. So I called them up. I called the phone number on the website, and they found me a distributor in Canada, which is in Quebec, and he found me a dealer, which was in Barrie. I called him up and asked him about it, and on the website the batteries are not included, I don't think, but he said the batteries were. And I says, well, I've got $7,500. That's about all I can pay. I says that has to pay for it, the batteries, the taxes, and the delivery. And he says, well, first of all, there's no taxes on medical devices. I forgot about that. So that was nice, because paying tax on a $7,200 machine would be a lot. So batteries didn't cost me extra, and he didn't charge me for delivery. So they didn't have any. They had to import one, and it took time to assemble it and whatever. It was a week or two that it took to get to me. And I was walking on a cloud. I was so looking forward to this machine. Didn't know a lot about it. I knew it was fast, and that's about it. So the day it's showing up, I'm sitting outside waiting for it, and I see this pickup towing a U-Haul trailer. It stops in front of my house. Like, oh, that must be it. And they opened the doors of the U-Haul trailer, and my first thought was, holy crap, that thing is big. It's huge. I never knew it was that large. So we lost our garage because the garage was crumbling. The walls were all cracked. I made a video about that. I showed all that. The roof was no longer attached to the walls. It was just kind of sitting there. So it was a safety hazard. And my landlord had to take it down, and I think part of the lawsuit was he blamed the removal of the rocks or whatever. He blamed that as making the ground shift and cracking all of it. Those walls were cracked long before I even moved in there, and some of it had been filled in with cement, so it'd been there a while. So I think that's part of it. But anyways, we lost the garage, so I built this shed in the back for my scooter and Michelle's scooter. That monster wouldn't fit in there. So I had to alter it. And then I got the temporary shelter, built that in the back because it just needed more space. And I couldn't bring that with me. I couldn't do anything with it because everything that was in the backyard was frozen to the ground at the time we had to move. It was already winter when he gave us notice, and by March it's not going to be thawed out yet. So I had to leave a lot of stuff behind, including that. There's no way I could take that down. Everything was frozen in place. I had a good extension cord going from the house out to it. It was frozen into the ground. There was nothing I could do. So it was a crazy time. Boy, I got the monster. I loved it. It came with 2 sets of tires, 2 sets of front tires. It had street tires on it when I got it, and on the rack on the back it had the off-road tires. According to the website, you had a choice between street tires and off-road tires. So apparently I got both sets, 4 tires, no extra charge. That was cool too. And as much as I've had problems with the monster, my dealer's been awesome. I don't want to get into the whole story. This video is going to be long enough as it is. If you've been watching my videos, you know all the crap I've gone through with the monster. But I don't regret buying it. I wish I knew more about it. Because like I say, according to my dealer, it's not the only one he sold, and I'm the only one having problems with it. But all you guys that follow me on YouTube that have one, you've had the same problems I've had. For the most part anyways. But being on YouTube, open yourself up to the world. You get all these people on there who think they know everything about everything. And basically what I'm getting is, what do you expect? Look how you drive it, right? Well, first of all, I drove the ES950. I drove the snot out of that. And I'm gonna miss it. I've had it for, I think, 11 years now. 12 years, something like that. I never once changed the brushes in that motor. Never. The only thing I've really needed to do to that, as far as regular maintenance, is new tires, ball joints, front wheel bearings. That's it. Everything else, like the broken seat post, that's my fault from having the seat reclined way back, putting so much stress on it. That's it. And it handled all the abuse I gave it. And I compared the monster to that. I don't drive the monster like I did the ES950. Maybe I do stuff with it I shouldn't, but like I say, I compare it to, I keep saying this isn't the ES950. This was the Fortress. But I compare it to the ES950 because the ES950 was my first scooter, very reliable, and I get the monster and it's constantly breaking under the same circumstances, or less. And I still believe that the monster was a concept that was never fully tested. The motor's too small for it. It can't handle its own abilities. It's too heavy for the motor. And it's too heavy for the parts that they put on it. It's too complicated. Mechanically, it's too complicated. Electronically, it's too complicated. So it's got so many bad designs. And it really ticks me off when somebody accuses me. When the brake wire corroded, and I was having issues, I thought it was the motor that I was having the problem with. Anytime I drove on a rainy day, or damp day or something, I was having this issue. So I got it working, and just to test my theory, I realized, anytime this happened, it was on a day. It was when I was having the error code 2 problem, which was telling me bad connection to the motor. It had nothing to do with the motor. The motor was fine. It turned out to be a bad connection to the brake. And I accidentally discovered that when I was looking for something else, fixing something else or whatever, and I noticed that the brake wire was corroded, and when I went to look at it, it broke off completely. That's how I discovered that problem. But I realized at some point that it was only happening on rainy days, or when I was driving through slush on a warmer day in the wintertime when the snow was melting. So I decided to test it. Everything was working good. I got the garden hose out, spraying everything down. I caused the error. So that verified my theory. Well, I got comments on that video. Oh, what do you expect to happen? You're spraying it with water. It's like, that was the idea. I intentionally made it break so I could find out what the problem was. But there's no way. A lot of people put stuff up, put their videos up. It's a self-contained video. It's not related to anything else on their channel. Everything, all the information you need is there. My videos, that's kind of like a soap opera. Every video that you watch is based on previous videos. There's no possible way I can tell the entire story in every video. So somebody new comes along, they see this one particular video, they don't understand the situation, and they make stupid comments with no information, no backstory, no context. And it pisses me off. I'm starting to get angry now. That's coming. Once I start talking to YouTube and what's happening right now, I'm going to get very angry.